In last week's episode of Star Trek Strange New Worlds, we get to go back to one of the first planets ever conceived in Star Trek production history, Rigel 7. And in today's episode, we get to see Spock explore his human side in one of the most explicit ways imaginable by extracting every little bit of Vulcan juice from his being. Just a quick reminder that this is not a spoiler-free review, so if you have not seen the episode, be sure to go and watch it and then come back to the video and join in on the discussion. Let's get right into it. Off rip, today's episode got me really excited. They teased something that I really want them to explore further. They referenced Dr. Richard Corby, and they referenced his 3 principles of archaeological medicine. They were doing this because Nurse Chapel's character is attempting to do this prestigious Vulcan program, and she's doing a lot of research and experiments beforehand. I want them to introduce a young Dr. Corby at around the 4th or the 5th season point of this show. It's a huge part of Nurse Chapel's character. There really isn't a lot about her that is referenced in the TOS other than that she's a nurse, has a crush and a history with Mr. Spock, and then also that in the first season when they were doing a whole bunch of Twilight Zone episodes, that she had this long lost fiance or husband named Dr. Richard Corby who got lost on a planet and was turned into an android in one of my favorite episodes ever. The fact that they teased him at the beginning of the episode got me really excited. Jess Bush, her name's a little bit hard to say because there's a lot of S's in it, but she is so fine. She is really gotta be one of my top celebrity fictional crushes right now. Her portrayal of Nurse Chapel is so just beautiful, cute, sexy all around. And on top of this, she's a great actress. Every scene I've seen of her being Nurse Chapel, she's just absolutely killing it. A more Gen Z portrayal of Nurse Chapel with the tattoos, a much more relatable character, and it's improving on the character. I love how they're bringing Nurse Chapel and Dr. Mbenga to life, considering they were just merely very insignificant side characters, and I think Dr. Mbenga only showed up max twice at most in the whole entire TOS. Sam Kirk shows up in today's episode. It's always nice seeing Sam Kirk before his inevitable tragic death in the future. Today, for the first time, I kind of got the impression that me and him look a lot alike, but that could just be the mustache. Am I crazy? Let me know. We are halfway through the season, by the way, episode 5, and I've long been complaining about how we only get 10 episodes of live-action Trek. Live-action Trek is one of my favorite things in the entire universe, so I relish every second I can get of it. Today's episode was a full 59 minutes of content. When you compare that to episode 3, which was well over 50 minutes as well, I believe it's good to know that if we're only getting 10 episodes, that we get very long, almost TV special, well over 50-minute long episodes, and they're filling it with good content as well. Like today's episode, there wasn't a second where I was bored. Also, at the beginning of the episode, Spock is trolling. They're very awkward in the turbo lift, and while it is a funny scene, I get the impression that it has been way too long since the Serene Squall, where this romance between him and Nurse Chapel became really, really apparent. I feel like in Star Trek Strange New Worlds terms, it's been ages since then, and it's kind of strange now is the time they've decided for Spock to distance himself from Nurse Chapel. Was there something that happened in the last 5 episodes that I've forgotten that has made that the case? Maybe I'm just a fool and I'm forgetting things. At 9 minutes and 25 seconds, you can see Captain Pike's sideburns, and it just reminds me about how crazy the haircuts are on this cast and how insanely skilled the barber of this Enterprise must be to make that shit so crispy, like sharper than a machete. You could easily cut down a whole field of thick grass like a scythe with Captain Pike's outrageous sideburns. Sometimes I feel like they might need to tone it down on the futuristic space haircuts. In the promo for Strange New Worlds, Captain Pike's hair is outrageous. It is nothing short of just perfectly geometrical. Today's episode, Spock is turned into a human by the Kirkovians by traveling through their transport in their attempt to remediate him, and I really liked how they remembered after he turned into a human, they remembered that Vulcans don't like the scent of humans, and once Spock transitioned into a human, made a comment about, hey, do I like smell bad? I'm sure in episode 3 they were trying to tell us that Canada didn't exist anymore, so it is good that they are making note of and paying attention to these details. Also, since they made Spock completely human, he's not a Vulcan anymore. All the Vulcan chemistry has been ripped away. This is good for many reasons, because he can do things that he totally otherwise would never do. This is a completely different being than Vulcan Spock. I knew this the moment he put bacon in his mouth. Spock is very vegetarian. In the second to final episode of the TOS, when they go through the little library of time, there's the scene where Spock is ashamed because he eats the flesh of an animal. Because Spock is actually able to laugh, and he's able to experience these emotions and eat meat without physically getting super sick, that just goes to tell you that he is 100% human, because if Vulcans cry, or if they're forced to laugh in their Vulcan state, it could actually kill them. It biologically hurts them. Like, there have been a handful of times where Tuvok's emotions have been manipulated, and it had violent after effects. Spock in his human state definitely has autism. Can we all agree that the moment when he hugged Nurse Chapel in the hallway confirmed to me that if you take Vulcan Spock away from Spock and it's just human Spock, that's autism. Spock gets his autism from Earth. That is what I firmly believe. So cool to see Amanda Grayson's Discovery actor show up in today's episode as well, but she was milfed up. She looked way too good. She had this dress on. Why are they making Spock's mom so hot? They're like trying to make everybody so hot on this show, and I guess, I mean, they've been doing that in Hollywood for so long. This is nothing new. It's really new for Star Trek. Usually there's only maybe 3 characters in the main cast who are super, super hot, like made to be hot, so they sell the show. And that beanie joke where she said that Spock had a silly hat on was the funniest joke so far of the entire series. Kind of died at that moment when Spock just rolled up with the Starfleet beanie. That was hilarious. I think the Starfleet beanies are from Discovery. Did they have a couple of those in the background? Discovery really gave the crew a lot of casual wear, like the disco shirts and jogging outfits. Can't forget about the Nike darts. And Captain Pike with another formal green captain fit. New Trek does such a good job at designing these costumes, and I have seen a couple comments about people saying that there is a little bit too much switch up between the uniforms, considering the 24th century and the span of like 8 years we see 2 uniform switches from the TNG and then like 2 between DS9 and Voyager. I don't care. I love Starfleet uniforms. Gersha Phillips creating one of my favorite in the Discovery Captain yellow uniform, like rubbery looking green one from the previous episode, to this more satin appearing formal green attire. It looks amazing. I love every single Starfleet uniform that they conjure up. I also love the relationship between the senior staff girls in this episode, how they're all willing to go and help Nurse Chapel go to the wormhole aliens and help her with repairing Spock and getting him back to his half-human, half-Vulcan state. It's just really good chemistry between the girls and just amazing flower power. Great to see. Pring's mom, T'Pril, is insane. This woman has no shame. Not only did she just completely insult Spock and say that he was a disgrace to his family lineage, but then she went on to insult his bladder as well, and I don't know how much more you can just beat into a man by calling him a disgrace to his family and by saying that he has a weak bladder. Crazy, crazy stuff. Did anybody else think that it was a little bit over the top and maybe a little bit misuse of interdimensional super beings by having the wormhole aliens being used as a tool to update Nurse Chapel's space Facebook status to crushing, there as a mechanism to make Nurse Chapel admit that she had feelings for Spock? Not think that they should have just explicitly come out and said that they realized that Spock was adjusting his shields. I think that when you talk to wormhole aliens like this, they shouldn't have such a firm grasp on technology from your own reality. I feel like they should have had a synonym for shields, and that was a little bit breaking immersion for me. I love T'Pring's dad, by the way. His energy is great. His ability and his willingness to just want to do any activity that was put in front of him. He appreciated Captain Pike's food, and he was so down to play charades. So as much as T'Pril was being whack and a total Karen, T'Pring's dad definitely gets the positive vibe. Good noodle star. When he asked Captain Pike if he had any more of that Tav Mel, and Captain Pike was like, that was really good, and it reminded me about how good Anson Mount is at making Captain Pike a truly personable, charismatic, and not only that, but just original captain. He feels so original in this long line of previous captains that we've been given, which is definitely a hard task to do. Spock's speech to T'Pril and his mother, sticking up for her, was the best so far of the season and maybe even the series. Very touching, and it was very believable. There was not one moment of it where I actually wasn't moved. I've seen a lot of people make this comment, but Captain Pike's quarters are very, very large, and that is not congruent with the size of the quarters in the TOS. I believe that they should write in later that Captain Kirk downsizes his quarters as to be on the same level as his crewmen, and thus be a little bit more of a likable and relatable leader to his men. I think that that would be good writing. I feel like that would also be good lore. I would like them to maybe add that into some kind of dictionary later for Star Trek. Oh my gosh, the Spock and Nurse Chapel kiss. These absolute dogs. I did not see it coming. I really didn't think that they were going to do it to me that fast. Have T'Pring and Spock break up, leaving room for Spock to just totally admit his feelings for Nurse Chapel. A passionate kiss. It was cute, man. It was romantic. It wasn't corny or bad at all. I feel like it's been built up a little bit. I feel like fans are gonna love this. Giving Spock like a real-ass girlfriend for the first time ever that isn't T'Pring, because we all know how that's going to end. Incredibly good. It gave me butterflies. The writers are doing a good job, I think, if they're moving me as a viewer that much. I think this is going to go down as a top-tier Star Trek romance, tantamount to Captain Kirk and Edith Keeler, or Picard and Beverly Crusher and Bosch. A lot of people are going to be criticizing the show and how Ethan Peck's Spock is way too willing to explore his emotions and his human side, and I think that this is the opportunity to do so. This young officer Spock enjoying himself on Pike's Enterprise, and then ultimately when Pike gets into that accident and becomes a space vegetable, Spock is never really going to truly rebound from that, and he's going to become the conservative adult Spock that we see in the TOS, one that fears that he's going to lose and hurt another captain if he reverts back to exploring that human side. And it's not going to be until Spock dies and is reanimated and is turned into the cool Spock in the undiscovered country will we see this version of Spock being so open again. And I just think that if you have seen all the different versions of Spock and you've seen the lore, I think that that's totally appropriate and it's a great thing to do, and I love Spock. He is the strongest thing about Strange New Worlds. What is a better character than Spock at this point? Ethan Peck must be given an award, by the way, for just executing the best reprisal in all of Star Trek history. Like, I think him doing Spock on Discovery and Strange New Worlds just totally beats the shit out of anything the 2009 Star Trek movies did. I hate Zachary Quinto's Spock. I'm not even going to sugarcoat it. I think it is one of the worst things in all of Star Trek history. I'm sorry if you like Zachary Quinto. Spock, I do not, and I can't even, lie about it. With all that being said, though, this episode gets at least an 8. I want to give it an 8.5 because I really enjoyed it. It was genuinely funny. It made me laugh. A lot of good content and 59 minutes of content. Finally get to see this arc with Spock, Nurse Chapel, and T'Pring kind of come to fruition, and something's come of it that is very exciting for us Star Trek fans. This relationship between Spock and Nurse Chapel, however, definitely not going to last for long. Something is going to cut it short. What do you guys think? Is it going to be Spock or Nurse Chapel to end up breaking things in this little fling that they're having. And what was your favorite part about today's episode? Let me know down in the comments below. My favorite thing about the platform are comments. The more you leave, the happier I am. If you're enjoying any of the content or any of the videos that you see on the channel, I'd be very flattered if you were to subscribe. Once we get to 10,000 subscribers, I'm going to do something very goofy. Please slap a like on the video if you'd enjoyed it. And with all that being said, hope you guys have a good rest of your week. Live long and prosper.